Great to be here, good to see you all, thank you. You guys always turn out big numbers, so congratulations to your organisation for being able to do that. It's good to see. It is difficult to try and pull people together on a weeknight to try and get everyone together for a little chat. These chats are important, aren't they? Because it's all CPD these days. We've been trying to get it organised in the plumbing industry for a while, but there's a bunch of plumbers out there who think they don't need to know what's going on in the industry out there today. I've been a plumber since I was 20 years old, and you can't tell me how to plumb things out. All right, so basically he stuffed it up since he was 20 and he wants to continue stuffing it up in many cases. So. But they're beginning to accept CPD and things like that, but it's a bit slow sometimes. It's a tough old industry out there sometimes, but they're all good blokes earnestly working away. So, thank you very much. You did great.
Yep, there you go.
Did great. Thank you. You're not far away, are you? That's good. So I've prepared a little chat tonight, and we're going to talk about plumbing, and I'm happy to talk about anything in plumbing, but I've got some stuff. I'm going to talk about the Australian Standard Plumbing. It's been out since 1992, and it is our business, and we're happy to do it on your behalf. But I find that it's not difficult, but there's a couple of little things in there that are a little bit unusual. So I thought what we'd do tonight was just maybe look at some of the things. As we know, what we tend to see is, I have a philosophy and a view on these things, that people keep saying to me, when you go into logic consent, well, is it G13 or is it AS3500? Well, when you look at it broadly, there's the two of them, 3500, G13, and 3500 is AS3 in the standard these days. So you get through it and you think, some guys, you've got two houses side by side, one guy says he's doing it to G13, so he has to put up an 80mm terminal vent. The guy on the other side says, well, I'm doing it to AS3500 and he only has to put up a 50mm terminal vent. Why is that? Because really, when you look at it that way, just about everything you can do under G13 can be done under AS3500 somewhere. So if you know AS3500, you know G13, or if you know G13, you know AS3500. There's just a little bit that sits outside AS3500, and that's the ability to lay a drain flatter than 1 in 80. The Aussie stopped at 1 in 80 for some reason, right? Kiwis go down to 1 in 120. And then they say, well, if you're going to go down that flat, you should use a verifiable levelling device to lay those drains. To a plumber, that's probably, you know, he might put the level on it, or he might be using his thumb rather than the other stuff. But look, but if you said to me, well, what do you do at 1 in 80? If you can't lay it any flatter than 1 in 80, what are we going to use? A pump station. Well, what's best, a pump station or a pipe that's laid well at 1 in 100? Probably a pipe laid flat at 1 in 100 would be better than imposing a pump station on somebody. So the problem that's happening out there is a lot of plumbers only know 1 in 100. So they'll come along and lay a pipe at 1 in 100, and then the last little bit they'll drop down a metre and connect to the sewer. Come on, you know, what's normal grade? And they'll say, well, 1 in 100. Well, when I was an apprentice, normal grade was 1 in 40. By the time I finished my apprenticeship, it moved to 1 in 60. Okay, so, and now it's getting flatter. How do you tell 1 in 40 if you've only got a builder's level? How if you walked onto a site and you saw a pipe, you've only got a builder's level, how do you tell it's 1 in 40?
Is the bubble just on the edge?
It's half a bubble. It's half a bubble. Exactly half a bubble. That's what it is. So half a bubble is no trouble what they drummed into us as apprentices, but a lot of them just miss that these days. So the point is, if you keep asking the question, and I try and say this to most councils, if you keep asking the question, really, you're just going to make it difficult. Right? You're just making it hard for yourself. Why don't you just accept AS3500 and stop writing that useless document that you call G13? It'll be a whole lot better and easier for somebody. But they keep writing. You say, why did you write it? Well, we've got a lot of old plumbers around the place that we've got to give them something to hold on to. They're not quite ready to move into the sort of late 1980s or anything like that. We've just got to keep them there for a little bit longer. So really, once you know if you know G13, you know AS3500, but it's a bit difficult for some. So it's a subset. All right, if we just have a look at some of the things I wanted to talk about. One of the things that we probably, well, the big thing about, you can often have an argument with a plumbing inspector of where you measure pipes from. That's in the standard of where you measure it from. So it comes from the face of the drain you're connecting to the weir of the trap. It's not from the centre of the outlet to the centre of the pipe. That's what's written in the standard. So that's the first argument you usually have. There's usually, wherever's in plumbing you've got to understand, if you want to size a pipe, you've got to know how much water's flowing through it. And so in plumbing it's all about diversity, what we call diversity. So you're trying to guess how many fixtures are going to be running at once, how much water is going to be generated down that drain. Okay, and we're trying to say, well, not all showers in the house are going to be running, not all the basins in the house are going to be running. So we use a weighted scale, and each fixture is given a weighting or a unit value. Now, whether it was good luck or good management, the numbers in G13 and in AS 3500 are the same. So when I say I've got a sink, the fixture unit or the discharge rating for a sink is 3 fixture units. And once I know that, I can then go and look at a table and find out what grade I have to put a pipe on to carry that amount of water. So in the Australian standard, there's a table called 6.1, and it's got all the values on it, and it's pretty much the same as the New Zealand standard, but it's a little bit more elaborate. There's more fixtures on it. So it goes on, talks about things. Then one of the things that guys do have a bit of a query on is that if you have a bathroom group, so if you've got a toilet and a basin and a bath and a shower all in the same room, that can be a bathroom group. So that gives you 6 fixture units. All right, now if you count them up individually, it's 11. Okay, so if you're sizing up a couple of apartments or something like that, it could make a big difference as to the drain that's going to go out. Having said that, mostly for houses, once you've got a 100mm pipe for the toilet, that'll carry up to around about sort of 40 apartments. So 100 from a toilet, it's a pretty big pipe. But a bathroom group's a good thing. If you've got a floor waste gully, well then the weighting of that floor waste gully is the addition of all the fixture units that are coming into the riser of that floor waste gully. We never had floor waste gullies in New Zealand until 1992, and when the Australian standard arrived, floor waste gullies arrived. So there's good and bad in them. I'll have a bit of a look at them shortly.
What's the advantage of putting in a floor waste gully?
The advantage of a floor waste gully? It's, in many cases, it's a design tool. So in many cases, it's a design tool. So when we're talking about a floor waste gully, you all know what they are. There's a graded surface level. We've got a water seal underneath it, and into the riser we can take a bunch of fixtures. Okay, so a floor waste gully is what we call that assembly, and it's an internal waste collection point for fixtures that are in the same room as that floor waste gully. So once you've placed that in a room, anything that discharges to it has to be in the same room. Like everything else in the building trade, there's an exception, and so I can run a pipe out here and run it up to 10 metres long to go and pick up what we call a minor discharge. So that could be a TPR valve or a hot water unit, a safe tray, an air conditioning condensate, something like that. That can be outside the room. Everything else that's connected to the floor waste gully has got to be inside the room. And these waste pipes can't be any longer than 2.5 metres. If you can keep it under 1.2 metres, then you don't have to trap it. Basins always need to be trapped. So 2.5 metres is your maximum length. Now you say, well, why 2.5 metres? Because in New Zealand we've always run waste pipes 3.5 metres, haven't we? We then go, well, why can't I go 3.5 metres? It's not really about protecting the water seal on that fixture. It's not about protecting this water seal here. It's about making sure that we're not getting too much foot ventilation from these waste pipes coming back into the room. Right, remember there's a water seal here, and there's a water seal here. But there is a fair bit of waste pipe which is opening up into the room. So if we let everybody run 5-6 feet of waste pipes back into that room, well, that floor waste gully might smell. Now, floor waste gullies that are installed correctly don't smell. All right? When they're installed wrongly, they will smell. Okay, so we can't put things like kitchen sinks through floor waste gullies. Anything that carries food can't go through a floor waste gully. All right? The food will sit in the bottom of the trap and putrefy and stink the place in. If people pee in the shower, the floor waste gully will smell. All right? Or sometimes when there's a bit of construction debris sitting in the bottom and water tends to slow through the floor waste gully, you might get a little bit of fat build up, body fat build up on the inside, and that may smell. There's one other reason that they may smell, is sometimes you have a 4-inch floor waste gully, or it's quite quickly connected to a horizontal drain right next door to it. And that drain might go quickly to a toilet. So here's our toilet sitting in here, and our floor waste gully is maybe here, and the pipe comes this way. All right, or this is quite close to this. And so I'll introduce you to a term that we call turd carryover. So what happens is when somebody flushes this toilet, that pipe's going to run that full. Now you might get a floater that gets back on the downstream side of the water cell, so you can't see it when you look down here. So when the plumber looks down there, he goes, no, there's nothing wrong with it. It shouldn't smell. But you've got this little turd sitting back in here, festering away, and obviously it pollutes the whole water pool, not just the bit that you're seeing. Now that will generate smells out of there. But once again, that's poor installation. The way it should be connected in that case is that this invert here should be higher than the feet of the pipe to which it connects. Right? So once again, if they're installed properly, they won't smell. But quite often, you won't get to install them properly for some reason. So look, they're great fitting, and in terms of why, probably because you're getting the advantage of a floor grate as an integral part of the plumbing system and not running a separate pipe. Okay, so in apartment buildings and things like that, they're great. All right, and we can also put the hot water cylinder into this and use other things for it. But as a design aid, once we get to here, we can go another 2.5 metres. So plumbing used to be all about trying to avoid vents. Because remember, before we had air admittance valves, a vent was a very expensive piece of plumbing. Okay, so we did the whole of the Australian standard is built around trying to avoid having to put too many vents on something. So, and the key to understanding the standard is this concept of an unvented branch drain. Now, in Australia, or using the Australian standard, the concept is to turn around and say, here's our house, here's our sewer. What we want to do is run a pipe around the house. Okay, that's the backbone of the system. This becomes the main drain. All right, every drain has a main drain, and the minimum size of main drain can be is 100 mil. Now, the next concept that we want to lay down is that we've got a bunch of fixtures that are inside the house. Now, traditionally in the old New Zealand way, we'd chuck a gully trap there, and we would run all these pipes in 40 mil back to the gully trap. All right, now, fundamentally, it's a stuffed concept. All right. What's wrong with that? I suppose these are 40 mil pipes. Now the slab's 100 mil thick, and this is a 3 metre length, and when I come to here, well, that pipe is just under the slab where it comes out, so it's got no fall in it. Then when we connect it back into the gully, we get a sabre saw out of the truck and we carve a big hole out of the back of the gully, and we drop it into that disgusting looking thing that we call a New Zealand gully trap. All right, which nobody likes to see at the front door of anybody's house. All right, and we carve a big hole out of the back of here, and we poke it through about 20 mil. About a year later, when the ground settles, well, all this drops off, these waste pipes, and all the water spews into the ground around here, and it all gets sick, and then all that water starts to transmit back up into the foundations and up into the house, so we get a sick building as well, a sick ground. So the concept is poor. The Australian standard would look at it a different way and say, well, why can't we take, instead of just using an unvented branch drain to a gully trap, why don't we extend that drain into all these fixtures? We don't need two traps. We don't need one here and one there. Why don't we bring this pipe in here and join these things to it? So we have this concept of ideally an unvented branch drain, all right, rather than use a bunch of gully traps. We still need a gully somewhere. Every house needs a gully. All right, most houses, not every house. And that's for an overflow relief gully. So most houses have an overflow relief gully. If I put an overflow relief gully, let's call that point B, and that's point A. Where's the best place to put an overflow relief gully? At point A or point B?
B.
This one here?
End of the line.
Or this one here? Yeah, the furthest point up the drain. If I get a blockage there, that overflow relief gully is of no use to me. All right? But if I get a blockage there, well then that overflow relief gully, if it's installed properly, all right, will spew effluent out before it starts coming out of these floor wastes and so on. So the best place is as far up the drain as you can get. All right? So
in that case, what's the difference between a gully trap or an overflow relief gully?
The only difference.
Can say you need to show an ORG on your
Yes, is this
Like
Deepak?
galley
Is that Deepak or is that, or is it Louis?
What is the difference?
So the only difference between an overflow relief gully and an ordinary gully, they both disconnect the gullies. They're disconnecting the main drainage effluent from the waste pipe. The only difference is the grate on an overflow relief gully has to pop up under surcharge conditions. So if you use a standard New Zealand gully trap, it looks like, when you look at it from the top, it's like that, and it's got a grate here. And here's a little bit of news for you. If you enter from the top, you're supposed to drill this flat area out, not break out these things here. Okay? The pictures in G13 are wrong. Right? The object of the exercise is you've got a water seal under here, and you want to make sure that you're getting atmospheric on this side of water seal and atmospheric pressure on that side of the water seal, so the water seal stays intact. As soon as you've got this vent shoved full of waste pipe, well then it's not likely to happen. So that's why this big white landing area is here. It's saying, drill me out for the waste pipe. Rightio. So these things are sitting in here. Most of these gullies come with little lugs on the side. So if you're going to use it for an overflow relief gully, the plumber has to knock those lugs off and just sit it in the top of the grate once it starts building up effluent. The alternative is to use what we call the 140mm finishing collar, all right, which is just a beautiful, beautiful piece of plumbing. Available down at Reese's, of course, our sponsors for the night, so don't forget your sponsors. All right. And when the effluent starts to build up, this 140mm pops out at the top of the finishing collar grate. All right. So the only difference is the fact that the grate is supposed to lift under surcharge conditions.
So are they right? Sorry, are they right in saying we have to call it an ORG, not a GT?
Yeah, call it an ORG. Yes, call it an ORG. That's the correct term. You know, it's terminology, isn't it? You know, you wouldn't call a lentil a bean. You know what I mean? It's the right terminology to use.
Is that because it's standard 3500 versus G13?
No, they're both relief gullies. The New Zealand standard asks for a relief gully just as much as what the other one does, the AS 3500. Look, if I draw you an example just to reinforce what we talked about to start with, we've done it before. Here's a house. And if I've got a house, probably I've got a bunch of fixtures here, I've got a gully trap here, I've got those pipes running back here, I've got a drain running down here connecting into here, I've got a toilet sitting in here, going out into here, and I've got a vent pipe here. Alright, so what standard is that? We call it, what's that? Is that G13 or is it AS 3500? G13. I forgot to tell you that the house is actually in Brisbane. Okay. So, is it still G13? Yes, it is. But it's AS 3500 because you can do this, this and this, and this and this, and all of this under AS 3500. Okay, so to keep trying to convince the world that we've got a special plumbing code here would be silly. Alright, everywhere the ponds have been in the world, everywhere that map was pink, this is the way they plumb. Alright, everywhere. If I go to South Africa, it's plumbed like that. If I go to bloody Sri Lanka, it's exactly the same. Alright, so we're doing it exactly the way the Poms did it back in the 1860s. Alright, so there's no such thing as G13. It's just an ill-informed AS 3500. Alright, so what happens, we want to extend this house at some point. We want to turn around and say, I just want to, Granny's moving in here, so she's going to move in here. We want to put a disabled toilet in here, so we want a shower in here, and we're going to put a toilet in here, we're going to put a basin on the wall here. I want to pipe that out. How am I going to pipe it out? Well, I'm going to put a floor waste gully here, and I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to run that out there, and I'm going to run that out there. Now, of course, I'm going to turn around and say, well, that's an unvented branch drain, so I can run 10 metres, I don't have to vent that, and that's an unvented toilet, so I don't have to vent that. If I'm silly enough to say that it's G13, then I'm going to have to put a vent off that, and I'm probably going to have to put a gully trap outside for that. So why would I silly enough to say it's a G13 drain? You wouldn't. Okay, so pick your code. Well, we'll use AS 3500 and you'll never have to think whether you're using 3500 or G13 ever again. Right? They're both the same. Built in 1950 in New Zealand, of course it's going to be the old New Zealand code. Can I do an AS 3500 extension? Of course I can. It's a vented pipe under the ground. It doesn't know what country in the world it's at, all right? It just needs air to get to it, all right? So it will work. So the concept of an unvented branch drain, minimum size 100 mil, but the minimum size drain for a branch, a minimum size drain under the Australian standard is 65 mil. The minimum size main drain is 100, but when we go into branch drains, we can get that down to 65 mil. All right, now that's not bad until you start thinking about it. A 65 mil junction is the same price or more expensive than a 100 junction. A bit of 65 mil pipe is more expensive than a 100 pipe. All right, because they sell thousands of metres of 100 mil pipe and hundreds of metres of 65 mil pipe. So you're better off just saying everything under the slab, 100 mil. And then when you come back later on, and this pipe here goes to a sink, and the owner wants to change the sink to a toilet, you don't have to dig up the slab and replace the pipe. It's already 100 mil. Okay, so in many cases, 100 mil is fine. Except when you get out into the group housing market, it's just so bloody tight that guys want to run this 40 mil pipe under here because it's really cheap, 40 mil pipe, isn't it? So they want to use this concept of a bunch of waste pipes coming back to the gully trap. Mostly because the plumber is doing the bit under the slab and he doesn't care what the drainer is doing outside. He doesn't care if he ends up with 10 gully traps around the place. It's not in his price. So he doesn't worry about it. So globally, sometimes it's more sensible to use AS 3500. When we put the taper together, so as soon as we come out of the fixture, we've got to put the taper as close as we can to the outlet of that trap on a basin, on a bath or a shower or something like that. We can't have 2 metres of 40 mil pipe and then enlarge. It's got to be as close as it possibly can to the outlet of the trap. And the invert level, the taper is at the bottom. So the invert level changes. The soffits are straight. And it's to do with, allegedly, plumbing's all about myths. If you ask plumbers, they've got 1,001 little stories about their little industry. Most of it's bullshit. But some of it is truthful. All right, so that's the way it's supposed to go. You've got water flowing down here. Right, this bit here is supposed to be air. So when it gets to the trap, you've got a better chance of retaining this water seal in place because we've got atmospheric pressure getting to this side rather than that side. If we put it in like that, and this is the uphill here, air comes to here and it doesn't get as easily up into this pipe. Okay, so the top of the pipe is level when we put it in there. The advantage, as I say, is it's a 10 metre length. That picture there probably described everything you will ever need to know about AS 3500 plumbing, that isometric. So we've got the main drain across the bottom going up to the vent. The bit of pipe to the vent at the base of the vent is still a drain. So it has to be 65 mil. The vent can be 50, right, but the bit of drain to it is a drain, so it has to be minimum 65 mil. Then we reduce once we go vertical and pop up vent size. Minimum vent size for a terminal vent is 50 mil, minimum size for a branch vent is 40 mil. It all depends. The answer to every question in construction begins with, it all depends. All right? So you can see the first one here is a branch to a something or other. What's that one? A P-trap basin. So essentially you've got 10 metres. And within that 10 metres you can have your 2.5 metres of reduced diameter fixed to discharge pipe. So you can run around the wall up to 2.5 metres. Once you get down to that first bend, you go to drain size and run there. So it's 10 metres total, 2.5 metres within that distance. I can also, when you look at it, my 65 mil branch pipe can take up to 5 discharge units. So that's 5 basins could connect to that. All right, or a shower and 3 basins, showers 2. Right. If I go more than that, I have to make a decision. I've either got to go up in size or I have to vent the pipe. Now, the object of the exercise was to turn around and say, mostly, I don't want to vent anything. I would sooner go up in size. Once I go to an 80 mil pipe, I can still go 10 metres long, but I can now put a WC onto that. I can't put a WC onto a 65 mil pipe. So 80 mil pipe will take 12 fixture units and 1 WC. If I've got 13 fixture units or 2 WCs, I have to go to 100 mil pipe. So 100 mil unvented branch drain can be up to 10 metres long. You can take up to 2 WCs, all right, and 30 fixture units. So there's a lot of effluent you can put down an unvented branch drain before you have to worry about it siphoning any water seals. So we've said here is our main drain, I'm coming along here, water's flowing that way, I can run 10 metres unvented. Not the end of the world if I go to 11 metres, I've just gone over the unvented distance. So I would remedy that with a AAV in most cases these days. The vent's expensive. Now, if I want to put a pipe into this one here, well that's 65, this might be 65, this is a shower, this is a sink. Right, 65, 65, shower is 2 fixed units, sink is worth 3 fixed units, so this pipe's carrying 5. That's the maximum amount of effluent an unvented 65mm pipe can carry. As soon as I put a basin in here, well then this piece of pipe can be 65 here, but that bit of pipe carries more than the 65 is allowed to carry. So I'd have to up the size. So this goes to 80. As soon as I put a WC in here, all right, depending, it might still be less than 12, so I could carry on in 80. If I put 2 WCs in here, 2 WCs straight away means that that bit has to be 100. All right, so I can use 2 WCs on an unvented branch drain. And it just solves you a whole lot of angst because you just join all the dots together and that's fine. And if it really fails, you put an AAV on something like a laundry tub or a kitchen sink and the problem will be solved. AAVs fix everything. All right, we never had AAVs until mid-90s or something like that. Up until about a couple of years ago, we went to a whole lot of ill-conceived, ignorant discussion about them not being able to vent branch drains or something like that. And we had a very enthusiastic plumbing inspector here at Auckland Council who made it his life's mission to make everybody's life miserable. But he's gone now. And the rules have changed, thank goodness. So we can use an AAV to vent a branch drain these days. Just like we did for the first 5 years when they bought it in the building code. We never had a problem.
So we want to put AAV for the sink underneath the sink. It's just supposed to be maybe far as sink you might put it in, or anywhere in the sink in the branches.
Yeah.
That you might put this in the sink.
So this one here, if this was over distance here,
Yeah.
all right, and we had a sink here, we would put an AAV, here's your sink trap here,
Yeah.
right, ideally here.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to use the little, because you can buy a trap integral with an AAV. Now they are really only meant to vent just that one. If you're expecting it to vent all of this, this should be a true junction and it should be a separate AAV. All right, because these are only rated for quite small flows. All right, when you're going, and only the fixture that it's associated with. If you've got a bunch of other things down here that you're trying to protect their water seal on, you're supposed to use a separate AAV. All right, a little mini vent or something like that that'll go through there. So they do the job. So,
You can't use an AAV when you pump, if you do a retrofit.
No.
You've got a kitchen sink and you've got to pump it somewhere.
if we
You
had,
can't use an AAV in that situation, can
no,
you?
you can't.
You've got to use a special filter type thing that goes with the pump.
Yeah, they make them to sit on top. The little
Yeah.
bit, the council won't let you use it. All right,
Council won't let you use it?
Council won't let you use it. They don't want it.
They
Right,
don't
so
like it.
they exist.
So
They've
basically,
got charcoal.
you've got to run a separate vent all the way through with the plumbing line.
Yep. So a pump station in Auckland, it's got to be registered on the certificate of title, and you've got to run separate open vent for the drain.
Even just for a little kitchen sink.
Yes, silly, but that's the problem is that they're not in the G13 or the standard. All right, so Auckland Council rules are what they are.
So how many fixture units before you have to go from an AZ to a vent?
It's usually rated on the trap itself. Oh, look, no, an AAV is probably good for, I think the mini vents are about sort of 30 odd, and the big ones do about the hundreds. So, you need one open vent on the system. Once you've got one open vent on the system, everything else can be an AAV. So another little question. All right, so we know that we've got a main drain, for instance. Well, let's have a little bit of a discussion about this. So that is B, A and C. All right, so looking at that, which line is my main drain? Is it from A to B or from A to C? Why? It's the longest, without a doubt. What I sort of forgot to tell you is this is a 10-storey hospital. And this is a garden shed with a basement. Which one's the main drain? Hospital. This is a 225 diameter house drain, and this is a 65mm vented drain running 100 metres to a little basin. Right. It doesn't matter which one you want to call the main drain or the branch drain. It doesn't matter. But once you have identified one as the main drain, that has to have the 50mm vent on it, and it can't be any less than 100. This thing here is just a branch drain. It's unvented until you get to 10 metres long. If you go beyond 10, it becomes vented. Okay? So it's not necessarily the longest drain in a house that is the main drain. You can apply a little bit of science to it if you wanted to. So when we've got our stock standard house, all right, we're coming up here, we're going this way around the house, and we're coming this way around the house. All right, which one's the main drain? It doesn't matter. Either or. If we said it was this one, well then this is the last fixture. Within 10 metres of the last fixture, we put a vent pipe. Now if that's the main drain, the minimum size that vent can be is 50. This one here, because it's a branch drain, depending on the amount of effluent that's running through it, we could end up with a 40 diameter branch drain there. Okay, it all depends. All right, so it's not the longest one that automatically becomes the main vent, all right, or the main drain. It's the one that you decide it's going to be, and you might decide that it's the one that's carrying the most effluent or the most convenient one. It's just a main drain, a branch drain. Okay? How are we going, all right?
Yep, we've got about quarter of an hour or so.
We've got a quarter hour to go.
Yep.
I'm loving this. I'm loving it. All right. So we've got these branch drains. They're all right. If you look at the top table there, it just tells you there roughly what the number of fixture units that you can apply to that drain. All right. Over on the other side there, that is a vent. That's your vent sizes. So it's telling you there that a 40mm vent, right? You can only use a 40mm vent as a branch drain vent, not as a terminal vent. Right? A 40mm vent can take up to 10 fixture units. All right, so that's obviously 10 basins or some other stuff. Right? Your main vent can do from 10 to 30 fixture units. All right, now most houses are probably around about 25 fixture units with an ensuite in it. All right, a 65mm vent does 175 fixture units. An 80mm vent does up to 400. All right, and a 100mm vent will do the whole world basically. So G13 says you need an 80mm vent. All right, based on these numbers here, every house with an 80mm vent is around about probably 50 times more than it ever needs to be. All right, a 50mm vent is fine for most houses. Certainly 65 is a whole lot over the top. No house should ever need anything more than a 65mm terminal vent. All right. Now even that getting it through a top plate is pretty hard, isn't it? All right, and plumbers just go through top plates like they're just a piece of wood that's in the road, really. All right, so to try and get the minimum size vent is a good thing, if you can. 80mm is just insane. You never need to put an 80mm vent up ever, for no reason. All right, so, but we tend to just 80mm fine. So that picture there and that page in the standard, figure 3.6, and it will just about tell you everything you need to know. Table 3.6 and figure 3.6 in the Australian Standard will tell you everything you need to know about designing branch drains.
Does all that apply when you've got a combined waste under the slab?
Look, AS 3500, if we had something like if we've got a raised house, yeah. So if we've got a house sitting up on sticks, stumps, we call them in Aussie. Rightio, here's our donga up here. Rightio, so we've come underground, we've suspended underneath here and we've popped through the roof. Yep. So all these fixtures that are in here, you want me to get that? So all these fixtures that are in here, all right, these pipes here are just unvented branch drains. Okay, we've brought the drain up here, we're suspending the drain under the floor, and Kiwis only know a clip called a muncing ring or a piece of strappy old line. All right. That's suspended under the floor, as though it were under the ground. Now all these pipes here that are connecting all these fixtures to it, we just treat them as unvented branch drains. The main drain pops up here, there's a bit of 50 mil, and everything suspended in the void under here is a branch drain. So it has to be 65 mil under here. The rule is that it comes along, once it turns vertical, it's no longer a drain. This is the waste pipe. This bit here horizontally, connecting back into this main drain here, is our 65mm or our 80mm, our unvented branch drain. Like I say, so in terms of this being a pole house or something like that, it's just the greatest way of piping it out.
What if that's a slab, not a pole house?
No difference. If this was a slab through there, all right, nothing changes. All right, so we just join it all together under the slab. Look, I've said it before, the best place for a drain is under a house. Nothing can hurt it once it's under there, so long as the house is not sinking. All right, the best place for it is under, the drain is underneath the house. So, but the rules are 65 mil minimum pipe. All right, you just remember that, join everything together. It's the easiest way to design anything. All right.
Terminal vent be an AAV.
Well, we need one vent, it's a terminal vent, so it's got to be open. All right, if we just happen to need another vent here, that could be an AAV. All right, so you just one open vent on every system has to be a terminal vent. All the other vents on the system can quite happily be AAVs.
Why is that?
To do with venting the sewer. The council wants somebody to vent their sewers for them. Right, so we've got to let a fair bit of air out of the system. We've got to make sure there's plenty of air to keep these downstream side of these water seals intact. So we need to make sure there's plenty of ventilation getting into the system so that these water seals remain intact. Not necessarily about the circulation of air or anything like that. Every sewer, this is higher than this. Hot air, this is always warm water here. Hot air will be generated inside the sewer pipes, and because these pipes are supposed to run uphill, all right, hot air will rise and discharge out the top of the terminal vent. All right, so it's meant to rise to the top. We going right? Right. So unvented branch drains, fabulous things if we can make them work. Far tidier way of doing something than a bunch of waste pipes heading back to a gully trap.
No.
The terminal vents that on that system when it's under the slab and just coming up at the end.
Yeah.
The ADNZ makes us put it one fixture down from the top of the.
Oh, the clogging. The clogging. Here's the drain. Now we talked about that principle of an unvented branch drain. So if you look at the last, see the last pipe on that join there. There's a
Can't see it.
so just here's your branch to your vent. You got it?
Yeah.
So here's your drain area. So this is our main drain to that point there. Now this is a branch drain. That's a branch drain. Now that pipe there can be up to, because it's a branch drain, it can be either one of these, which means it can be up to 10 metres long, it could have 2 toilets on it, and up to 30 fixture units. So it doesn't have to be, when I put if I come around here and I come to my last fixture, now my last fixture might be a gully trap, or it might be anything. It could come straight through here and come to a sink. Agree? Now, the placement of the vent, I measured from here down 10 metres. And within 10 metres I have to put that branch to that vent. That makes this piece of pipe here an unvented branch drain. So I can put up to 2 toilets on that unvented branch drain if it's a 100mm pipe. I can put a sink, I can put a laundry tub, I can put a basin, and I can put a floor waste gully which is picking up a shower. So long as there isn't any more than 30 fixture units on that 100mm pipe, it's an unvented branch drain. As such, it doesn't need venting, and I certainly don't need to put this vent between the last and the second last fixture. That is wrong, 100% wrong. It's a carryover from somebody who doesn't know what they're doing in drainage. In plumbing, when you go to a high-rise plumbing system, there is a rule that says the vent on that pipe has to be on the last or the second last fixture. But that's in high-rise plumbing. It's not in drainage. Okay, so whoever is propagating that myth is 100% wrong. I'll be happy to help them understand.
If you've got a 3-storey domestic house
Yes?
and it's all running into a vertical stack,
Yes?
you've got to run the vents up and around sometimes and hook back into the stack. They all come back into it again.
Yeah.
Get carried out vent. So the big flow comes through all at the same time. A bath's going and a washing machine and everything
Yeah.
else is going. You've got to pull a vent coming up and around,
Yeah.
going back into the stack again to carry that sort of venting process.
Yes, get rid of it, put AAVs on things when you need them. Don't put the vents on things, it's too late. So you're up here and we've got level 1, level 2, third level here. Our stack goes up the outside wall. Now, New Zealand standard says, right, I have to put a relief in on that
Yeah.
because it's 3 floors high.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if it was the Australian standard, it would be the same thing.
Yep.
It does. It's if there's a floor between the highest and lowest floor to get it. Now, New Zealand standard says, or the New Zealand system is the UK fully vented system, or the Australian fully vented system. So it means every time you put a fixture and you've got a water seal, you put a trap vent on it. When you look at the pictures in the standard, that's what it shows. Every fixture, every water seal has its own vent. All right. Now, back in the 60s in Aussie, they thought, gee, that's pretty expensive. What can we do? Right. So in New Zealand, we modify this a little bit so it's true. Right, that comes up there. In New Zealand, we would say, right, that needs a vent, that has to have a vent, that has to have a vent, and that has to have a vent. And that's what G13 says, eh? It says that's what you've got to do. The reality is that we don't need those vents so long as these pipes are not greater than 2.5 metres long. Right, we only need to vent the last one, and of course we can vent that with an AAV. And AAVs work best on things that are above the floor. So things like wash machine standpipes, laundry tub waste, kitchen sink waste are fabulous things to AAV. Floor waste gullies or bars or other things that are under the floor are not good things to AAV. All right? Because you've got to get at that AAV at some point. It's going to fail at some point. All right? And it'll have to be replaced. Now some people say the AAV has to go above flood level. It doesn't. The manufacturer's tech data says that you just need to have 100 millimetres of pipe between the inlet or the diaphragm of the AAV and the feet of the pipe to which you connect. Right? There's a little pocket, when this drain starts to block up, there's a little pocket of air that goes up here and it stops all the shy from getting up here and interfering with the workings of the AAV. Okay, so it just needs to have that 100. If you look at all the tech data from the manufacturers, they all say it doesn't have to go above flood level, it only has to be 100 millimetres above the feet of the pipe to which it connects. All right, it doesn't need to go above flood. A lot of angst there, so it works best and easy. So the Australian standard, vent the last fixture, and of course these days, don't waste your money on a vent, put an AAV on it. All right, everything that is connected to this pipe that is less than 2.5 metres long doesn't need a vent.
Can I just ask, if you put it on a kitchen sink or a WC, is there any potential for odour from those?
No. AAVs let air in, so they respond to negative pressure in the pipe. So as this water rushes past here, air comes in. So they don't let air out. There's a very, very fine little rubber diaphragm and a spring in there. As soon as there's just the slightest bit of negative pressure inside the pipe, they suck air in. As soon as this atmospheric pressure restores to normal, that will close. So no air can ever get out of them unless it's broken. Right? And if it's broken, take it off and chuck it away and put another $15 valve on it and it's all fixed. So they will not smell and let air back into the system.
But the best setup if you're doing a sort of like a renovation or a setup is to put, like if you've got a bathroom setup, you put the floor waste, you run it all through that, then you cook and do everything else. Because that allows for an extra flood situation at the bath, the basin or anything else you flood over, you've got a floor waste and you vent through everything through there and everybody's happy.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, it can work very well. But obviously there's a depth that comes with a floor waste gully.
Yes.
And that's usually about 280 for that style.
Yeah.
All proof have got other ones that have got about I think it's about 220 for what they call the boss type that goes out there, and it's got 3 inlets. And then there's also another one which is called a submerged inlet. So that's the outlet there. The inlet actually comes in below water seal, and that will allow you to go under some joists and things. Right, the water sits in this pipe to here. and that's approved under the standard as well. So it'll allow you to put that pot gully in and actually get underneath the joist without having this hang down into the ceiling space.
You can use those flat flutter valve ones too, can't you? Where you use on basins and things.
Yeah.
Where they're just like a flat
Yeah, so
diaphragm inside of a round bit of pipe.
yep,
It's about getting pretty close to time.
right, no worries, Phil. The other one that there is out there is this Hepworth valve, H2O valve, and it's just like a piece of lay flat hose
Yeah.
that sits inside the fitting, but they have to be accessible as well. So they're really good for things that we can't charge. A floor waste gully with a water seal always needs to be charged. Don't put floor waste gullies in your kitchen areas, right? As soon as you put it in the kitchen area, you've got to try and charge it. Put an internal overflow in your kitchen sink, right? They say, well, what about the washing machine, or what about the dishwasher? That is going to overflow through mechanical damage, and that's not what's a requirement of the building code. The building code looks for accidental overflow. Accidental overflow comes from people leaving the tap on in the sink. As soon as you put a floor waste gully in the sink, you've got to try and charge it, and you can't use the kitchen sink to charge it. All right, so either put a dry floor waste, the old New Zealand style dry floor waste, and chuck it outside. If you put this here, you've got to charge it some way. Now, if you've got a air conditioner or something like that, you can do it. Right, I've had the wink from the man that's in control here. So, look, we just had a nice little chat about plumbing tonight. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. All right, it's my business. It's all I know. All right, I'm a quantity surveyor, but I don't quantity survey very much. It's too busy doing plumbing design. Far too busy, Dave. Is that right?
Yes, too busy.
That's right. I'll read them all, mate.
Reply to your emails.
Yes. 400 of them that are sitting there. Guys, look, been great. Thank you very much. You've got a great institution here. You're very strong in the industry. You need the strong industry because you know how tough it is out there. So you need these guys backing you up. The job that these guys do to pull you together is a very good job. So all the best. And if I can help anyone, by all means, give us a ring. But you know, you've got the books. But don't believe there's two codes. There's only one. Don't forget your sponsors for the night, all right? Please, don't forget your sponsors. They're important. This wouldn't happen without them. Thanks, guys. I'll pass back to the chair.